get our acceleration now. Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're gonna be going over a 2021 Toyota Corolla hatchback in the XSE package with a manual transmission. But first and foremost, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Toyota here in Murray for giving me some time with this Corolla. Check out the inventory link below. Let's get straight into the video. Under the hood of the Corolla, we have a naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder that goes through a 6-speed manual transmission. Fuel economy is 28 around town and then 37 on the highway, with power outputs being 169 horsepower and then 151 pound-feet of torque. Let's go over the front end on the Corolla. First off, this color is called Galactic Aqua, which I think is such a cool name for a color. And if you guys are kind of wondering, here's a closer look so you can kind of see the blue a little bit better. But we've got these full LED lights with the LED accent lights that kind of come down, which looks really good. You've got the fog lights here at the bottom and got all blacked out grille pretty much here with the chrome that kind of goes around it as an accent piece. Got the Toyota logo that doubles as a sensor. And other than that, I think it's just a really good looking car from the front end perspective. Now coming on the side here, we've got two 25mm tires wrapped around 18-inch wheels in the front and over in the rear as well. As for the design on the wheels, I think they're really good looking. How they have the silver with the dark gray. I just think it's a really good appearance overall with the rest of the car. And speaking of the rest of the car, here's kind of like your full side view on the Corolla, which with kind of like the aggressive front end they do there, and then the wheels and then everything on the side, it's a good looking car. Hop into the back of the Corolla. So first off, you've got the little Corolla mat here in the back, and then yes, you do get your Toyota first aid kit, which is always pretty interesting. And then underneath the mat, you can see that you just push in with that little piece right there, and then it lifts this up, and then you've got the tire underneath that little portion right there, and then you do have like some random storage there on the side. But other than that, that's the Corolla, and also it does come with the cargo cover already built in. Now let's go over the rest of the rear of the Corolla. So first off, I love the look of the taillights. I like how they're integrated into the rear hatch, and I definitely think the hatch is the better looking Corolla. You've got all of your badges here on the back with the XSE badge right there, and then you've got those little things that look like exhaust tips, but it's not the exhaust tip. But yeah, overall, I think the hatch definitely is a really good looking car from the rear end too. Now let's go over the door panel here in the rear of the Corolla. So first off, you got like the white trim here at the top, and then you've got the nice leather down below where you actually rest your arm with the stitching that goes across, and then all of the blacked out trim there with the little window control. And then here are the seats. So you've got all of the white, and then you got the, kind of like the cloth there in the center portion, and then just down below. But yeah, definitely looks good. Let's actually pop in though. So I got to duck just a little bit. If you guys are wondering, I'm 5'11", and I've got a good amount of headroom actually. Legroom, I fit as well. And then you've got kind of like storage space right there. And then if we slip our fingers in here and pull this down, we've got a couple of cup holders. But that's everything for the back of the Corolla. Let's go over the door panel here in the front of the Corolla. So again, you've got the white trim here with the leather just down below, and then I really like that kind of like metallic trim that goes all the way up as part of this little panel right here. It's the grab handle. And then you've got all of your window controls right there. You've got your mirror adjustments as well. It says Corolla right there. And then here's kind of like a better look at the color right there. And then here's the seats to the front. So again, you've got the same white leather here with the cloth trim there in the center portion. And then just down below, you've got all of your controls for the seats. They are power adjustable. And then you got the little Corolla mat right there with the 3-pedal layout, because this does have a manual transmission. The steering wheel is manually adjustable. And there's one more look before we pop in. I've got our steering wheel here in the Corolla. So we've got our smooth leather all around the steering wheel itself. You've got your collision assistance, your lane departure assistance, cruise control, and then controls for the radio, your volume, voice command controls, and then controls for the center stack as well. Got your little light control right there. Also doubles as a turn signal. And then you get your windshield wiper stock on the other side. And that's all for the steering wheel. Now here is the center gauge cluster. I really like the look with all of the blue on the gauge cluster. I think it's definitely just kind of like a nice design touch. And then there in the center, you can scroll through a couple different menus. It's pretty much just like a full digital readout. Well, the whole thing is a screen. But yeah, I think it's just cool, kind of like, it has like the analog look, but then it also has like the screen look at the same time. So it kind of like, you get the best of both really. Now here's the center infotainment system. First off, let's pop it into reverse. You guys can see the backup camera. It does have the trajectory lines, but as you can see, they do not turn with the steering wheel. Resolution on the camera though is really good actually, and I mean, it's a small car, so you really don't need much. As for the rest of the infotainment system, you got all these buttons here on the side, which response time with these buttons is actually really good. I mean, you press them and pretty much instantaneously happens. And then you have the screen, which I feel like response time on the screen is also really good as well. So overall, it's not the most modern looking infotainment system, but it still functions really well. Response time's good, and I like it. Now down here we do have the climate control. So this does come with the dual zone climate, which it's a really small car, doesn't really need it, but it's still cool that they give you that option. You got the vents with the little hazard lights there in the center. And then down below, we've got our heated seats, which yes, I do have mine on because it's freezing. And then there's that storage space kind of like right there in front of the heated seat controls. And then over here we do have our stability control, and then we have the IMT, which stands for Intelligent Manual Transmission. So this gives you the rev match on the downshifts. It apparently helps with the upshifts as well, and then it does the auto hold on the hills. When we get into the driving portion, we'll test this out and see kind of how it functions and everything. And then here is the 6-speed manual transmission. So in terms of the throws, they are kind of like in between. So they're not short throws, but then they're not crazy long like you'd get in like a Jeep Wrangler manual transmission. Kind of like right in the middle, kind of like a nice place. And then if you want to reverse, is pull up and then you go all the way over for reverse. But yeah, overall, I mean, it's a good manual transmission. And then you get your parking brake behind it and then your auto hold. We have a couple cup holders in this section right here. And then you've got the center console right there with leather on top of it. Decent amount of storage space, and then you can charge the device there. And they do have a little like thread through here for a cable, which is another nice little touch. And then here on the dash, you've got kind of like all the soft touch and stitching all over with the dash. And then opening up the glove box, again, good amount of storage space within that little portion right there. But yeah, I definitely like the theme of kind of like the white with the black. I think just kind of like overall the contrast throughout the interior is really nice. And then finishing things here at the very top of the Corolla, next you've got all of your regular controls for the lights. It's kind of like a dark grayish headliner. It's kind of like, it's not quite black, but it's pretty close. It's like a really, really dark gray. And then the mirror does have the little dimmer function with it as well. Now that we're done going the interior on this Corolla XSE, let's quickly get into the pricing. So in terms of pricing, this Corolla XSE stickers for about $25,000 before any type of market adjustment. That being said, let's take her out and see how she drives. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off here in the Corolla manual. So first, well, XSE manual. Anyways, visibility of the hood's really good. It just slopes right down. There's your visibility through both of the mirrors. They do have blind spot monitoring, and then here's throughout the rest of the rear. So from a visibility perspective in the rear, it's not necessarily the best, but I definitely do prefer the hatch to the sedan from a visibility perspective. And, well, wait, IMT is on. First gear, let's set off. We are setting off here, and the reason we're setting off in the parking lot is so you guys can kind of see how easy this is to maneuver and all that stuff with the manual transmission and all that. And it's actually really easy to use here at low speeds. Like, it's super simple. It's a really hard car to stall. Now watch me, after saying that, somehow manage to stall the car in this review. I think that'd actually be hilarious if I did that. But yeah, really easy to drive around at low speeds. The clutch is very light. The shifter definitely is like, it's so notchy. It almost feels like it almost like gets stuck to an extent. Not quite, but like you definitely do have to pull on it quite a bit. I mean, the gear shift's really smooth. I'm definitely a little bit too close there. My legs are longer than I remember, I guess. See how this IMT does. Yeah, so that rev match is pretty good. It's gonna be kind of weird for me to get used to it because I haven't driven a car with rev match in quite some time, and so I'm used to doing it myself. But it'll be cool to kind of see how this does it. Yeah, super smooth with the transmission. Really easy to drive, actually. Yeah, this would be a great car. It seems like all these new manual transmission cars are so good. That's kind of like the sad part about this. Like, they finally made manual transmissions like super smooth, and that snow just flew off the side of the car. But anyways, they finally made manual transmissions super smooth, really easy to drive, but nobody drives them anymore. Like, this is probably the best time to own a manual transmission car because you've got the rev match downshifting, you've got the whole auto hold on a hill, so then you don't roll back, and like everything about the transmissions is just so good, but nobody drives them anymore. Oh, I tried to blip it myself. Yeah, that rev match is really good. That is really good, actually. I'm surprised that they're able to do it because 4 cylinders are kind of notorious for not really wanting to rev match downshift, and so it actually does a really good job there with that. And we'll kind of see how the turning is now. The turning's really good. It's just a really smooth transmission. Like, I have absolutely no complaints about this transmission. It's smooth and it's just really easy to drive, which, I mean, I'm just impressed with that. And going over stuff, it doesn't really upset the car. Like, this would be such a good daily driver. It gets the good gas mileage and it's really smooth over everything. So far I'm actually really impressed with the this new Corolla, which, yeah, I'm surprised by that. Well, we're going over the famous Ben Hardy Reviews train tracks. That's definitely what they're named, by the way. Get our acceleration now. Pretty interesting. So from an acceleration standpoint, it actually accelerates at a pretty decent pace. First gear is really long though. Like, I short shifted and there was still quite a bit left to go on first gear. So yeah, it's interesting how long they have first gear set at here in the manual transmission Corolla. I'm not sure the exact speed you can go all the way up to, but yeah, it definitely seemed like a longer gear, which, I mean, no complaints on that, but definitely different. Kind of what I think is when you have like a higher horsepower car, it's okay to have longer gears because you're going to go through the gear really fast. And when I say longer gears, I mean your gear shift is going to be at a higher speed. Whereas with cars like this that don't have a ton of horsepower, you kind of want the gears to be a little bit shorter so that you can be up in higher RPMs quicker, just because, to compensate for the lack of power. I love that auto blip though, it's really good. That was kind of like a bit of a bump. But yeah, this is what I'm talking about, is like right now we're in second gear and we're at 4,000 RPM. Red line is a little bit before 7,000, and you're not going to shift into first gear going about 35 miles an hour. Like, that's just stupid. And so it's kind of what I'm talking about, is I wish that they would have kind of done the gearing a little bit different, but I mean, still, it's actually pretty good, and I still love the rev matching. Like, guys, I look like I'm a pro, even though, like, obviously I'm not necessarily the best manual transmission driver in the world. It makes me look like I'm a lot better than I am. But let's actually get into summing things up with this manual transmission Corolla. So first off, from an exterior aesthetics perspective, it's a really good looking car from the outside. I think the Corolla hatchback is definitely the way to go from an appearance standpoint. And then as for this interior, I definitely like the contrast between the darker elements and the lighter elements. Overall, I think it definitely just makes for a nice looking interior. And then in terms of the performance with the car, so from a power perspective, it's right where it needs to be. It's pretty much right around where all of the other competitors are at in this segment, minus the Mazda 3 turbo hatchback. That one's quite a bit more expensive, but that one does have more power and torque. I've got to mention it. But from the rest of performance, I love this IMT. I think it makes driving the manual transmission a whole lot easier, especially for someone that's going to be new to a manual transmission. And I think a lot of people buying manual transmission Corollas are probably going to be younger like me, and a lot of them are probably not going to have a lot of experience driving manual transmission cars. And so having that system where it kind of does a lot of stuff for you, I mean, even though it's not as pure to the manual transmission format, it definitely makes the learning curve a lot better and easier for someone that's learning to drive a manual transmission car. So overall, I think it's a great car. It gets great gas mileage, it looks good, and I'm glad that they still offer this in a manual. Sad that people don't buy it in a manual as much anymore because everyone's getting automatics, but it's still here for the time being. Now, that is going to sum things up for our video on this 2021 Toyota Corolla in the XSE package with the manual transmission. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to the Larry Miller Toyota here in Murray for giving me some time with this Corolla. Check out the Amazon link below. I'll see all of you in the next video.